Ladies and gentlemen, today we have another classic. Today we're going to be making steak and potatoes. And I thought to myself, what better meal than to eat a hearty meal now that we are approaching the winter time? This is simple, it's basic, it's to the point, and you will absolutely love it. So let's get into it. All right, so for this recipe, I'm going to be using a boneless chuck steak. Now, when it comes down to steak, this is completely personal preference. Now, I like chuck steaks because they're not too lean, but they're also not too fatty, right? It's that perfect blend of lean and fatty within the same type of steak. Now, like I said, when it comes down to this is completely personal preference. If you like another type of steak, you can cook with that steak. All right, now before we start cooking the steak, we have to start with the potatoes. Now for these potatoes, I'm going to be doing a garlic herb butter type of potatoes. We're going to saute these up. But before we saute them, the first thing you have to do is you have to cook them in the oven. The purpose of cooking them in the oven is to soften them up, right? If you just cut the potatoes up and saute them up in the pan, they're going to be really cooked on the outside and they're going to be really raw on the inside. And we don't want that. We want soft but firm potatoes. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and start cutting these up, and then we're going to throw them in the oven. And when you do these potatoes, you want to do them in quarters. So I'm going to quarter it just like that. Just like that. And we're going to do this for all the potatoes. Now, if you have a whole bag, right, I recommend just cooking the whole bag. Right? That way, when you want to cook potatoes for another meal, you already have the potatoes softened and ready to go. So what I want to go ahead and do is I'm going to cook off this whole bag of potatoes. That way, whenever I eat again, I have potatoes ready. All right? Get the potatoes. Make sure you wash them off. Nice and rinsed because potatoes are super dirty. You want to always make sure that you rinse potatoes. All right, now we're going to oil the pan. Make sure they don't stick. Move that all around. Yeah. We're also going to put a little bit of oil on potatoes as well. Toss that around into the pan. And you want to put these in on 400 degrees, and you want to put them in for about 20 minutes. So we're going to go ahead and put that in now. Then get our trusty timer. All right, so let's set this to 20 minutes. Sorry, 21. And now we wait. All right, so timer's going off. Let's go ahead and check on it. Okay, get this out the oven. All right. Move those around. And you just want to feel these to make sure that they're softened a bit. If they're not softened, you can always cook them for a longer period of time, but these are still pretty hard, so I'm going to let them go a little bit longer. All right, so just took out the potatoes. They were in there for about 30 to 35 minutes. So you want to kind of get this little light golden color where they're soft but not completely cooked. So we're going to go ahead and toss this into a bowl. And then, toss this into a bowl. And then we're going to go ahead and start seasoning the steak. All right, now when you're seasoning steak, you want to make sure that you season this meat very generously. Red meat seasoning does not adhere to red meat very well. So it's not like chicken or seafood where, you can just kind of lightly coat it and it'll have a good flavor. You do need to make sure that you salt and pepper every corner and crease of this piece of meat. That way that the flavor transfers over once you cook it. So when I'm seasoning my red meat, I do go a lot heavier than I normally would with seasoning because I know that if I don't, you're going to have weak spots of seasoning where you have some spots that are really seasoned and then you have other spots that kind of taste like nothing. And that's the last thing you want when you're doing red meat. So as usual, I'm going in with the usual blend: onion powder, garlic powder, salt, pepper, and of course, sage, the goat of the game. Going with some sage. And you guys can see, as I said, I'm going very heavy with this because you need to coat the meat well in order for it to transfer over for red meat. Now, you guys can see that it is very coated well. Even the sides, I got the insides, I got the corners. Now we're gonna go ahead with the pot. All right, now when you're cooking steak, you wanna make sure that you get your pot really hot. So I got the cast iron really hot. We're gonna go in with some oil. You wanna make sure that you use oil to lock the seasoning in. That way, when it goes in the pan, all your seasoning doesn't stick to the pan. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and go in with that, like that. And basically what I'm doing is I'm gonna sear the meat on both sides. Now, I want you guys to know something. When you're making steak, there's multiple ways you can do steak. But typically how it's done is either cooked completely in the pot, completely in the oven, or you can sear on both sides and then finish it in the oven. So I think for today, I'm just gonna finish it on top, but typically I would usually sear it on both sides and then finish it in the oven. This, like I said, this is a fattier meat since it is a chuck steak. So it's lean, it's fatty, but it's also a bit lean. So I don't have to put it in the oven. If you're dealing with something like a New York strip that's a lot leaner, you would have to finish that in the oven because the meat would take too long to cook in a pot. And what would end up happening is that the skin would cook on the outside, but the inside would still be very raw and tender. So we're gonna let that sear for a second and flip that. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and check on it. Oh, look at that coat. Now that looks amazing. That's exactly what you want. I think I'm gonna turn it down just a little bit more charred than I like it, but it'll still be fine. All right, so we're gonna go in with a little bit of garlic. Just a little bit to, just wanna smother it with the minced garlic. Just a little bit more. I love garlic, so I'm gonna smother it with a good bit of garlic. This is another thing that's just like personal preference. All right, so I went ahead and cut the heat off. I like mine about medium rare, so now I'm just taking this butter. I'm just smothering this butter on here. The heat from the pan is gonna melt this butter. So you don't have to worry about keeping the pan on because we don't want the meat to overcook. So I'm just gonna leave that on there. And then I'm also gonna put in some rosemary. Some rosemary right here. The coating of it. A little bit of rosemary. All right. All right, got the tongs. Let's get this bad boy off the heat. Boom. Just turn it on the other side too. Bangers, look at that. That looks amazing. All right. Now we're gonna saute the potatoes up. I'm gonna go ahead and go in with a tablespoon of butter. You wanna keep it on low heat as well. A little bit of avocado oil. You wanna keep it on low heat as well because you don't want the butter to melt. You just want it to, or you don't want it to simmer out. You want the butter to still be in there. We're gonna go in with the potatoes now. And essentially what you're doing is you're cooking the potatoes in the butter. So you don't want the pan too hot because if the pan's too hot, you put the butter in, it's just gonna disintegrate. So we wanna cook the potatoes in butter. And what that's going to do is that's going to sear it in and make that coat. So we're going to let that sit for about 2-3 minutes, and then we're going to turn it. All right, so now as you can see, the potatoes are simmering in the butter. This is what you want. You want to keep them on a low heat and just let the potatoes simmer. Every 2 to 3 minutes, you just want to shake the pot in order to change the side that it's searing on. That way it doesn't cook too much on one side. So it's time to shake it. Give it a little shake like that. And as you can see, just like that, just trying to get that golden coat on the side. So you want to make sure that you're constantly rotating these so that they don't burn. All right, so we're going to chop up some parsley real quick to add to these tomatoes. I'm going to mince this up pretty good. This is another thing that's also optional, but it's just something I like to add greenery to my dish. So to give it a little nice rough chop, nothing too crazy. Just adds that extra touch to the potatoes when you finish it. Now we're going to go in with that parsley. Boom. Salt. And go on with some pepper. And then, of course, got to go in with some garlic. Now, we're going to toss that up. Toss that around. Oh, that looks beautiful. And look at that. That looks beautiful. So let's go ahead and plate it up and see how it looks. So, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Steak with garlic herb potatoes. Perfect meal for the wintertime. Hearty, whole, healthy meal. Thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Wishing you peace and prosperity. Until next time. See you soon.